welcome to another Pretalk for the European Chatbot Conference, today with Eve Psalti. Welcome, Eve.
Hi, Doran. Great to be here.
Well, thank you for being here. You're from Microsoft, and that's all I'm going to say. Please introduce yourself.
Great. Yeah. I'm part of the Azure AI engineering team. I'm based here in Seattle, Washington, in the Pacific Northwest in the US, in the headquarters of Microsoft. And I've been at Microsoft for several years, but in the AI space for the last 10 years, and in this particular role for the past 4 years, I would say. So I had the pleasure of seeing the evolution of all the innovation that was happening around the AI space that started probably 20 years ago. And now, with the synergy of a lot of different things, we see kind of like the massive growth that we see now, especially with the LLM growth like 3 years ago and the explosion there of opportunities. So, my role is to help customers and partners really understand AI and best integrate AI into what they're doing. So, I'm really excited to be here and talk about all of that.
Now you have thank you for that introduction. Now you're going to give a talk at the European Chatbot Conference with a very exciting title, and I have a question about that. The title is, I have to read it, I can't remember it. Engineering the Future. That sort of triggers me. And then comes Harnessing the Power of AI to Drive Business Growth. And we know the whole world is about business growth, and a lot of companies are saying, oh, we need AI because it is the solution to all our problems. Now, we know that isn't true. It could cause a lot of trouble as well. But how does one harness the power of AI to drive that business growth? Because and how do you do that as a big company, and how do you do that as a small company?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. And it's a very intentional header. It was not an accidental choice of words because obviously I'm a technologist. I've been in the tech space for more than 20 years. And I believe that of the capability and kind of the innovation that AI brings for a lot of different facets of the business world. But the technology is irrelevant if it's not applied in the right way to solve a business problem that a company has. And I see this over and over again, especially in the last 3 years, because there is so much hype around AI and what AI can do and can enable. And there is a lot of pressure from CEOs, from board of directors, for companies to adopt AI as part of their strategy. So checking that box, which I think is the wrong way to go about it. I would say, you have to start from the pain. That's what I always tell everyone. Start from where you're not really efficient, you're not optimized, where there is a lot of redundancy that you need to automate things. Start from some area where you can optimize through some, simple automation that can be done through AI. And then go backwards, because by focusing on the pain point, then you can drive some results. You can have an ROI because you were able to automate some document processing that took you 3 months and 200 people to do, or you were able to translate a bunch of different documents really fast so that you can accommodate your global audience, and you can really prove the value of AI. So it's not just a hype, it's not just checking the box. You can really articulate how much money you're saving or how you're improving your operations using this technology.
So basically, you're saying, if I can summarize this, start with low-hanging fruit and not too big a project.
Correct.
So it's
And
manageable.
identify 2 or 3 use cases. Another pitfall that I see over and over again, there are these over ambitious teams that say, we have identified 300 use cases for AI. I'm like, great, but this is too much. Identify the 2 or 3 that, again, you can really work on, you can show the impact, show the results so that you can get the investment for the future one. So you don't have to boil the ocean. Start with the 2, 3 top ones, and then go gradually from there.
You just talked about investments. Now, one of the things I see, and we see that in the chatbot world, and we see that in the conversational AI world, and it's in AI the same. A lot of good ideas, a lot of good intentions, a lot of interesting projects the first year. And then there's budget and there's commitment, etc. And one of the things where a lot of these projects fail or get stuck somewhere is that they get a 1 year budget commitment, where the way I see it, you need a strategic commitment. That means multi-year budgeting and allowing or giving space for failure, because you will have that too.
Mhm.
Um, how do you? What's your vision on how to get that commitment on sea level? Because it's hard.
It is hard. It is hard, and AI can be expensive. I mean, the good thing is that AI models are becoming more commoditized, so they are becoming more efficient, less expensive. So it's not like, even 3 years ago, it was very costly to run an LLM because it was a very heavy AI model to run. And now we have like much smaller ones. We have categories like SLM, small language models that are a little bit more nimble, easier to manipulate and customize, and all of that. So the good thing is that the cost is going down. But you're right, like, it's still a huge investment because it's not just the AI model per se, it's all the changes you need to make to your processes, your operations, right? But incorporating a new tech, it requires you to change the way you do business. So there is a cost of doing so. And you're right, organizations are usually kind of like geared to care about, like, in 12-month cycles. What I see working out really well in enterprise, but also in smaller companies as well, is that AI does not belong to IT, which I think is like a misconception because it's not about the tech, it's about the changes you're making across the different department operations. So, to successfully implement this, and to share best practices across the different departments and groups, you need to have kind of like a center of excellence, a governing body of champions, AI champions across HR, across marketing, across sales, across IT, so that you can, like, have a cohesive vision on how AI really augments and evolves the strategy of the company. And as, like, one department is creating kind of like, an HR chatbot so that employees can get information about the insurance company and the coverage that they're getting, like a very simple thing. Then you can share these best practices with other departments so that you can have a similar chatbot for the sales team, so that they can figure out their commission and the incentives and whatever. Like, I'm making it up, right? But
No, no, but I
that's kind
understand.
of like one way to go about it.
It's like an oil spill. It slowly expands, right?
Yeah,
But but
exactly.
but but having said that, we know getting good, skilled people with knowledge is also a problem, and this is all new. Oh, it's not new, but there were a few people busy with it, and a lot of academics. And right
Yeah.
now, it's being commercialized, so it's a different world. And what we see is that there is not enough people that have the knowledge to do implementations or understand what they're doing, even at the IT management level.
Hmm.
We see a lot of people that, and you can't blame them, have no idea. They never experimented themselves. Okay, they tried OpenAI or ChatGPT or one of the other models to chat with and get a solution. Great, but that's not implementing AI. That's, it's using it to write a text or to do something. Um,
Yeah.
how do we get? It's just because you're giving this example, and it's a really good example, but how do we get these people up to speed with the knowledge they need in order to do such a project successfully?
Hmm. No, that's a great question because as the technology really rapidly evolves. Like, from an engineering standpoint, we have new features and new AI models and new iterations almost every week. The evolution is rapid. We used to have 3-year cycles, like, 10, 15 years ago, and then we kind of like, changed into a much more agile system. So we had semester planning. So every 6 months, now everything is out the window. Every week, there is something new that we're building, we're releasing. So the rate of innovation is huge. So the need to keep up with all the changes, so that you know what you need to pick and choose to incorporate in your daily job is becoming really tough. I would say two things. One, uh, I'm a firm believer that you don't have to be a data scientist to use AI. What we're doing on the Microsoft side, and this is not like advertising, but this is just like, part of our way to democratize kind of like the use of AI. Beyond IT, beyond data science, is the whole concept of a co-pilot. So half of our engineering team is working with internal groups, whether it's the Microsoft 365 team, the Dynamics team, we're working with the GitHub team on the developer side, even Xbox, Bing, to infuse AI capabilities in the products that people use every day, right? So if you're using PowerPoint to create a presentation, you will see a lot of AI capabilities there to make your presentation more interactive, easier to create content and images and all of that. So you don't need to know the ins and outs of an AI model per se to use it in your day-to-day job. The same thing with Excel, with Teams. There are a lot of like summarization capabilities. You can have a meeting, then you hang up, you have all the notes from the meeting, you have the next steps, you have like a very good summary that you can reference for your record. So there are a lot of things that you can do, and you can harness the power of AI without having this deep AI knowledge. So that's one thing. So the other thing is, I would say that as the technology really evolve, I think it's on us, it's on all of us to make sure that we have the fundamentals around this new tech. So I highly recommend the certifications that are out there. I think LinkedIn Learning is doing a great job. Every provider has their own set of certifications. Like on the Microsoft side, we have the Azure AI fundamentals. Yes, and all of that. So like everybody's doing the same thing. So again, it's not like I'm advertising the Microsoft side, but it's the notion of micro credentialing really works, because you don't have to go and get a 4 year degree, but you can get a certification to get the fundamentals, to get kind of like the core knowledge again, so that you can cherry pick the things you need to incorporate in your day-to-day job.
Now, thank you for that. I recently saw a recording of your CEO, and he said something that sort of startled me. I'm like, oh wow, I didn't think about this, but this is actually what's going to happen. And I don't remember who he was giving a talk or he was being interviewed, and it was about AI being embedded in everything in all over Microsoft, which is interesting in itself. But he said, but we probably expect that at some point, Excel is non-existent anymore. You just have a chat interface, you have data, and you just ask what you want to know, and it does it for you. You
Absolutely.
don't have to make any algorithms or whatever or calculation. You just ask the question in normal language, and that's it. And I thought, oh wow, that's revolutionizing the use of data. If you could do it that
Yeah,
way,
it's
it makes
enabling you to do things like, again, it's more about the
augmenting.
it's yes, it's exactly, it's augmenting kind of like, the things that you really do. And the whole notion around kind of like creating these interfaces is kind of like what we call really agentic AI, and it's
Yeah,
becoming more autonomous. It's not there yet,
I know.
but that's a lot of investment that we and others are making towards this space, towards agentic AI. So basically, instead of you going and I don't know, like if you're planning a trip, you have to go and book a flight and book a hotel and like make sure that all of these are coordinated through an agent. you can really streamline the whole experience. You can have an interface and say, I want to go to Lake Tahoe for the long weekend, and I'm a family of four, and I want XYZ. And then you have these mini agents that are going there and accessing the different sites and the different portals. They know the preferences that you have, or you prompt them with the preferences you have, and then they build this experience for you. So there are a lot of opportunities in tourism, in retail, government affairs, like even in manufacturing, that we'll see more and more so.
Yeah, because I envision if you are a manufacturer of dishwashers, say something stupid. Um, there's so many. There's only a few factories, and they make so many models, right? And they last a long time. Nobody has the manual or the technical manual, and then the engineer needs to come, and they don't have the part, and they have to come again. How great wouldn't it be if you just use augmented reality, where you have an overlay,
Agentic AI and
and then
through
the
yeah,
agentic AI. So, oh, this is the problem, and then it takes you through the steps to do the diagnostics as a consumer, and it shows you on your screen or actually you take a picture of your machine, and the AI says, oh, that's that. So do that, do that, do that. Oh, that doesn't work. Now we know which part. So it tells you if you call the engineer, tell him to bring this part, and you have to replace it and make it or even here's the agenda of the engineer, and just plan your repair. But I envision that this is augmenting the engineer because it's making his or her life easier. But for me as a consumer, it makes my life so much easier. It drives down my cost as well.
exactly, yeah.
So these are the things I see happening. It's going to have an impact though on the labor force at some point.
It already has, but again, like that's with everything, right? Like, back when the Industrial Revolution came, like, workers needed to be reskilled and upskilled in order to use new machinery, new processes. So yes, like, I don't want to create that false narrative of like nothing is going to change and everything is going to be great, but there is a shared responsibility across everyone. I don't think it's smart or wise to resist this, which I see a lot of times. Like, oh, this is like beyond me, or, this is not good, and I'm not going to learn, and I'm not going to change. This resistance is never good, right? Because
No,
the,
true. I gave a talk.
so yeah, exactly. So I'm kind of like, I feel like, that's why I say it's a shared responsibility across the people who are developing these tools to make sure that we're developing in the most efficient and in the most responsible way. But also, it's the responsibility of the user to make sure that they are knowledgeable, they're educated, so that they can make the right call for what they're doing.
It's funny you said it because a while ago I gave a talk for medical professionals, neurologists, and they invited me to challenge them on AI. And of course, I did an experiment. I used OpenAI to, without privacy information, 5 patient dossiers, and I prompted no OpenAI. So you will get a compliment in a minute. I prompted OpenAI as a consumer would do, but with a little bit of medical knowledge. And I asked it for 5 differential diagnoses to tell me what could be wrong with the patient. And I showed that on the in PowerPoint, of course. and in 4 of the 5 cases, the OpenAI had the right diagnosis as the first one.
Mm.
Very simple, but it suggested 4 others, which the reaction of the doctors was like, we didn't even consider that. Oh, we didn't investigate that. This would be really handy if we, based on this, have differential diagnosis and either check them off the box or in the box, or just not rule it out based on what we
Mhm.
think, but have factual information. There was one where the actual diagnosis was the last one, the least likely one.
Yeah.
Anyway, this one doctor, she lifts her hand, says, "Am I going to lose my job?" And I thought, okay, how can I uplift you? So I said to her, I said, well, imagine you're a patient. Would you want to be treated by a doctor that augments him or herself to be a better doctor and be assisted by AI to have a faster um, and a broader information base to give you a diagnosis, to understand what's happening, to maybe cure you or not? Um, or would you choose a doctor that solely relies on his or her brain? Uh, and then it was silent for a minute. He says, well, yeah, I probably would go to the doctor that uses AI. I said, well, then you know what to do. If you are not going to use AI at some point, then you will lose patients and your job. And
It's true.
that
It's
sort of
true.
was the
That's a
shocker.
great example. Yes, and it reminds me of a of an interesting quote that a colleague of mine had because AI is an aid, is a tool, right? Again, the
Exactly.
misconception is like, oh, robots are going to take over. The current reality is that it's a very smart tool. So AI, she mentioned, and I'm going to quote her, is like an intern, so they're very knowledgeable, they're very energetic, but they don't have the experience, and sometimes they lack the critical thinking. So this is where they become like AI becomes a really great tool for someone to apply their critical thinking and to make a decision based on all the plethora of information that AI is providing for them. So we still believe that the human is at the center of the experience, but now we're giving them much more information so that they can make an informed this decision towards.
And that's the interesting part. And it doesn't AI doesn't leave out information based on biases. It just, if you tell it to use it, it will use it. And it's
Yeah,
and
yeah,
no
again,
no
you
language
have to
barriers.
know how it's built, right?
Yeah.
So if a model has been trained on medical data just from a particular geography or a
Uh,
particular segment of patients, you need to know how this model is built because if it has been trained on a bunch of people in North America that are white, and then the majority of your patients are
African.
African American or Hispanic or whatever it is,
Yeah.
then you should not be using, or you should take this model with a grain of salt. So I'm a big proponent of creating tools for the data scientists or the AI developers to identify and flag any potential biases into the AI models that they build. And this is what a lot of the broader engineering team is doing on the Microsoft side to make sure that we provide the right tools so that the users can compare and contrast and flag any potential issues that they might have with these AI models.
It's good that you're saying this because basically also then people understand that sometimes bias, for instance, in the medical field, is actually could be a good thing because there's enough how do you say that data on a certain
Mhm.
subject to give a good opinion. That is good bias, and bias in itself has a negative connotation, but it's not
Yeah,
necessarily negative. That's one of the problems in people who don't know what's happening. Um,
it's
I
true.
have another question. We discussed it a little bit earlier before the talk. 'Cause I have this question that keeps burning, and that's the risk of vendor lock-in with AI. What we see is a lot of companies, Microsoft companies, or with other with AWS or whatever, and once they have AI, let's say there's OpenAI and Azure in every nook and cranny in their company, um, it seems like they're fully dependent and their business model is dependent on Microsoft, which I understood is not true or not necessarily true. And you had a real good vision on this and sort of took the carpet under my assumption, the rug under my assumption. And I was happy to hear that because it's one of the worries I have in the way, with business growth also comes business risk. One of the business risks with AI is vendor lock-in. So how should you manage that as a corporation or as a Microsoft customer, how do you manage the the risk of vendor lock-in in such a way that you can actually manage the cost of your operation, and
Hmm.
some sort of control over it? Not if Microsoft or any other company, it's not about Microsoft, raises the cost of cloud computing, raises the cost of the AI tokens, and all of a sudden your operational cost goes up, sky high.
No, it's true. I mean, it is a concern across the board, whether you're a large or a small company. I would say on the cloud side, because there are different layers in the stack, right? If you look at the kind of like, the whole IT stack, there is kind of like, the infrastructure side, like, and then you have the cloud side, and then you have the AI layer. And these are all kind of like, fairly separate. They can be connected, but they can be very, very separate as well. So on the cloud side, I agree that there is potential risk in locking yourself with a particular vendor. What we see in most cases is that people are hedging their bets, and they have a multi-cloud infrastructure for that particular reason. Again, I don't think one way is better than the other, but I don't think you should your only option is to lock yourself with one particular vendor on the cloud side. Now, also independently of what you're using on the cloud level, you can use whatever you choose on the AI layer as well, which is a fairly separate layer in the IT stack. And even within that, you have a lot of choice. Like, as I said in the beginning, AI models are fairly commoditized at this point. You have a choice of the more traditional AI models that are trained to do one particular task. Like, there is a language model that does translation, there is a speech to text model, a text to speech model, and you can cherry pick these ones. They can be very light, they can be very simple to use. You can call them up as an API, and they don't break the bank. All the way to LLMs, to large language models, like the ones we have through our collaboration with OpenAI. But even LLMs are becoming fairly small. If you look at the ChatGPT 4.0 mini, these are very, very small, agile, very inexpensive AI models. Um, from a Microsoft standpoint, we also believe in the interoperability of this AI model. So not only we make available the ones that we build and the ones that we get from our collaboration with OpenAI, but we also have third-party collaborations with Meta. You can use Llama, their whole Llama family. You can use the Mistral models out of Europe, out of France, Cohere. We have a collaboration with Cohere, and also with others for more language-specific models, like G42 for the Arabic LLM entity, for the Japanese model, and all of that. Anyway, so the point is that you have a lot of choice. So you should not be under the assumption that you have to lock yourself with a cloud vendor or an AI model vendor. If anything, that's why I think education is really key. Having the right tools is because you can compare and contrast based on the use case that you have and the task you want, the AI tool to help with. You can mix and match different models in order to be kind of like more efficient on the outcome. So yeah, and if that is not enough, then there is I think more than 17,000 open source AI models available in Hugging Face. The one thing that I would caution with open source is, and with any use of AI model, you need to understand how they're built. Again, going back into the bias conversation. So having kind of like a dashboard of some sort where you can evaluate different models is absolutely key. Uh, Also, make sure that when you use an AI model, uh, you understand what the AI model provider is doing with your data, especially if you infuse the model with your own proprietary information, whether it's your patient information, your customer, your sales information, whatever it is, right? Um, because like we on the Microsoft side, we go out of our way to make sure that we don't see this data, we don't use this data, we don't use it to train any more models, we don't pass it to any third parties. And this is like a promise that we make, but you need to make sure that when you use something, you know what is going on with your data and where it's going.
Well, thank you. And that sort of coincides with the European AI Act. You just basically talked about a part of the European AI Act without naming it, but that's of course an important thing as well. You have to deal with
Mhm.
that as a company, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I have one last question for you. What would your advice be if a company thinks it can drive growth of their business with AI and they don't have any AI, well, they think they don't have any AI now, but most companies do, even without knowing. Where should they start? If you're a CEO of a company, what would, or you were talking to a CEO of a company, what would you tell him or her? It's like, okay, you start at A and then B and then C. Where do they start?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's $1 million question. But I would say it's a culmination of a lot of things we talked about already. I would say, like, the first part is to really identify the business objective for using AI. So AI needs to be part of, like, the company strategy, the strategic plan, in a meaningful way, and having the right use cases is really key, right? And focusing on the business need. It's not, oh, I want to use this LLM. It's like, why? The right approach will be starting with the business need. I want to automate a process that is currently very costly, or it takes a lot of time, or it's prone to errors, or I want to improve my customer experience. So I want to build a personalized customer experience. I want to build an intelligent contact center, and I want to automate that. Or I want to increase the productivity of my teams, so I want to build an internal virtual assistant that is multimodal, or I want to improve my developer efficiency when they generate code, when they do the documentation. So again, it's like using the business need to start the plan for how and where you use AI. And the other piece that I think we also mentioned before is not to keep AI in the IT side. This is a very old-fashioned way of doing things, and it's not efficient because you start from the business side. You need to make sure that you have a cross-departmental kind of like governing body and a center of excellence where you can share best practices, you can fail fast and learn from it, and then go beyond. um, and again, identifying 2 or 3 top use cases where you can prove the concept, you can prove the value, you can show the ROI, the cost savings, and all of that. You instill confidence in the process so that you can move on to phase 2 and phase 3. And then making sure that AI is not about the data scientist and the AI developer, enabling and creating that learning culture across the organization, because everybody can be using AI at different levels. You can all the way, from manipulating an AI model and fine tuning it, which can be fairly sophisticated, but all the way to like a very simple way to know how to use the AI capabilities in products that you use every day in order to be much more efficient. uh, and then this is like a cyclical process, right? It's not like a one and done. I think, as you identify more business needs and you kind of like, integrate and incorporate certain AI tools, you learn from it, you understand what works, what doesn't, then you identify some more, and then, you do the testing, the evaluation, and then you move forward. And I think that's kind of like an intuitive and healthy way to think about it.
There's one question. Thank you for that. There's one question that popped up in my mind while you were telling this. Basically, whoever comes to you, if you're the CEO or COO, you should constantly ask the question, what problem do we solve?
Exactly.
And if you ask that question, then the rest follows. And I think, and if they can't
Absolutely.
explain it, or and 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 you can see why AI is relevant or not. But if there's no problem, then AI is irrelevant.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
basically what you said. Thank you very much, Eve. I'm looking
Thank
forward to
you.
meeting you in Edinburgh,
Same
and
here. Very
and
exciting.
we'll have some more. We'll talk some more about the use of AI.
Absolutely. And by then, we'll probably have some new things to talk about.
We're probably learning about the next new big innovation.
Exactly.
Take care and see you in
Thank you so
Edinburgh.
much.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Tara. Bye.
Bye.